What's going on? It's Dalen, and today I'm going to be going back 4 generations of the Crawfords. Hopefully, you enjoy it. Starting with my great great grandfather, John Thomas Crawford.
John Thomas Crawford didn't finish high school, and he lived and born in Griffin, Georgia, where he raised my granddad as a baby. He owned his own house, property, and animals. He was in a singing group in Georgia. He was able to read music very well out of a hymnlog, and he sung with the Miller, Georgia Singers Group. The Miller, Georgia Singers Group was a singing group in Georgia, in Griffin, Georgia, and it was consisting of all black people, and it was about 30 to 40 people.
Here's a little snippet of an old song sung. For John, growing up in the South during the 1890s to 1920s was tough for an African American. They had to deal with Jim Crow laws, and those are the segregation laws separating blacks from whites. Disenfranchisement was a big thing considering blacks were not allowed to vote. Lynching was also a big thing, which was racial violence towards blacks where they were hung to death by whites. The Great Migration was a significant movement of African Americans from the South to the North in search of a better living and economic opportunities. On August 17th, 1925, John Thomas had a daughter named Otha Bell Crawford. Growing up as a young African American female in the South of the 1900s, Otha faced discrimination not only because of the color of her skin, but because she was a female. She had less rights than a man, and one big one including she wasn't allowed to vote. She also went through the Great Depression where job opportunities were low and many families were barely having food to eat. On September 13th, 1945, in Tampa, Florida, Otha gave birth to my grandfather, Preston Crawford. Preston was then taken in by his granddad, John Thomas Crawford, who raised him in Griffin, Georgia. Preston faced segregation growing up in the South and went to an all black high school called Fairmont High in Griffin, Georgia. During the summertime, he would go back to Cleveland, Ohio to live with his mother and his younger sister by 12 years, Brenda, and his younger brother by 10 years. He participated in his school's band where he played the trumpet and the baritone. He also had his first car at 16 and knew how to drive at 12. After graduating from Fairmont High, he chose to join the military where he was then stationed in Sacramento, California. He lived in Sacramento for about 2 to 3 years while serving in the U.S. military. He then retired from the military after a couple of years serving. While stationed in California, he then moved to Cleveland, Ohio with his mother. While in Cleveland, he got married in 1963, and at age 21 or 22, he got his first job at an aerospace company working the tool operator. After working at the aerospace company, he found a new job in driving the city bus in Cleveland. After staying in Cleveland, Ohio for 10 years, he then moved to Dallas, Texas in 1976 to attend Bishop College, which was an HBCU that is no longer existing. He majored in political science and minored in economics. He graduated in 1978 and a cum laude. Post-college, he worked at a few mortgage companies as a loan service person for about 8 to 9 years. He then became an assistant vice president, then eventually vice president for United Mortgage Trust. He retired from that job 13 years ago, but he works at United Mortgage Trust as a part-time employee. He has 4 kids, starting with the oldest, Sharis, Shania, Brandon, and Braxton.
He was born on January 19th in 1983 in Oak Cliff in Dallas, Texas. He lived in Oak Cliff with his mom, dad, older sister Shania, and younger brother Braxton. He went to Bernie Alexander Elementary School until he was in fourth grade, where he then moved to Duncanville with his mom and siblings. His oldest sister, Sharis, had already been out of the house. He attended Hardin Elementary School, then went to Reed Middle School, then went to Duncan High School. His first job was at 15 at Subway. His second job, he was 16 and he worked at Dallas Fort Worth Airport. During the summertime, he would live with his dad. His first car was a 1990 Toyota Tercel. He played basketball for the first 3 years of his high school career at Duncanville, and then he played football his senior year. He met his soon-to-be wife and my mother, Jessica Crawford, his junior year in high school. He graduated high school in 2001. After graduating high school, he decided to go to college at Stephen F. Austin and majored in criminal justice and minored in business administration. In 2001, in the fall semester of his freshman year, 9/11 hit. This was an impactful event on America, and it was also an impactful event on my father because it is what inspired him to join the military. He went into the ROTC his spring semester of his freshman year all the way through his graduation. He got his second car, which was a Ford Ranger, his sophomore year of college. In the fall semester of his junior year at Stephen F. Austin, he pledged Kappa Alpha Psi. After his graduation in May 2005, he officially joined the military as an officer on May 5th, 2005, and he also went on to continue his education and got his master's degree. On March 8th, 2006, my dad had his first son with my mom, and that was me. 2 years later, on May 3rd, 2008, he and my mother, Jessica Crawford, got married. Because of 9/11, the U.S. went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. He participated in this war shortly after he got married for 13 months from 2008 to 2009. Because he was in the military, he was stationed in different states and was forced to move all throughout the U.S. Starting in Dallas, Texas, he was first stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana for about 1.5 years, and this is where he had his second son, Dalen Crawford, on September 25th, 2011. He then was stationed in Maryland and was there for about 1.5 years, but then was soon deployed to Cuba for 1 year. After coming back home in Maryland from Cuba, he was stationed in Columbus, Ohio, where he stayed for about 2.5 years, where he had his first daughter, Dior Crawford, on September 4th, 2016. He then was stationed in Orange County, California, and stayed there for about 4 years. Finally, he is currently stationed in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where he is months away from completing his doctor's degree and a couple years from retirement from the military.
Here is a picture of me, my dad, and his dad, 3 generations of Crawfords. That wraps up my documentary project going back 4 generations of the Crawfords. Hopefully you all enjoy.